Hey folks, I'm Alex Dowd.
And I'm Katie Rife.
Today we're going back to talk about one of this year's Best Picture nominees that came out this summer. It's Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Welcome to Film Club. So Dowd, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was a big movie last summer. It's actually a big box office hit as well as a hit with critics, and it's been doing really well this awards season. I reviewed the film last summer. Been a Tarantino fan since I was very young and watched Pulp Fiction at a slumber party when I was too young to do so. And
Written a book on him.
Yeah, a while back I did write it was sort of a primer to B movies and exploitation movies to watch if you like Tarantino films. That was a while ago. Maybe don't look it up.
It needs a new chapter though.
It needs several new chapters because Django Unchained was coming out when I did the book.
Okay.
Now, I gave the movie a B+, and you gave it a B+ as well. It can. Mm-hmm. In retrospect, I have had I think a longer relationship to this movie than a lot of the other movies that have come out this year.
Okay.
And I think I should have given it a slightly higher grade. I think I should have given it an A-. I don't think it's a perfect film, but I think that although saying that this very long film will grow on you is maybe a bit of a tough sell, I do think that it's the kind of movie that rewards multiple viewings because the more you watch it, the more you feel like you're just hanging out with Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt's characters.
Totally. And I think a big part of it is that that first viewing, when you're watching the film, you have no idea where it's going. Mm-hmm. This film entered the conversation at Cannes, and the big question was, how is it going to handle the Manson murders, which sort of loom over the whole film.
Yeah.
We're not going to get into that today. If you've managed to somehow not see the film, congrats. You have a pretty good movie to watch now. But we don't want to spoil it for you then.
It's out on digital now. It's not on streaming yet, but you can rent it.
Yep, that's right. But I think a lot of that first viewing, for a lot of people, myself included, was about anticipating where this thing was going to go. Mm-hmm. Once you know the architecture of the film, you can just kind of, and I think this is true of a lot of films, but it's maybe especially true of something like this that's so languid, you can just kind of appreciate its beats without the tension of where is this thing going to drop me off. Yeah,
and I think like you were saying, the languid nature of the plot, that not a lot happens in the middle section of the movie. It's a lot of conversations. Mm-hmm. I think that languidness actually, the first time you watch it, increases your anxiety about what's coming because you're like, okay, how much longer does this movie have? Yeah. What's going to happen? And knowing how it ends, I think really frees you up to appreciate the smaller, even quieter moments in the film.
Definitely, and there's a lot of those, honestly. I mean, Tarantino is said to have coined the expression hangout movie. Mm-hmm. He was talking about Rio Bravo. Great film, and it's his conception that there are certain movies that what they're really about is just hanging out with the characters.
Right.
That the plot is really just an excuse for us to spend time with these characters. And I think that's a big component of what he's doing I think it's a component in several of his films, but I think this is the one that comes closest to being a pure hangout movie.
Yes.
In the sense that we spend so much time in this film just hanging out with our main characters.
Yes, I agree with that. In particular, I think about two scenes when I think about the hangout movie aspect. One, I think about the scene where Leonardo DiCaprio is Rick Dalton, who, if you haven't seen the movie, he's a Western TV star, was in his prime in the 50s and early 60s, and now it is 1969, and he's kind of fading into irrelevance and middle age, and he's really not handling it very well. So he's guest starring on a Western TV show, a real TV show called Lancer. And there's a scene where he's sitting around. If you've ever been on a movie set, it's a lot of hurry up and wait. So they're in the wait part of the day. And he's sitting with a little girl who's co-starring on the episode with him, and her young actress, who I thought she did a fabulous job. Her name's Julia Butters. And they have a whole conversation about the book that he's reading. And it sort of becomes this larger thing about the new generation coming up and replacing him and all that stuff. So that scene is a little more thematically loaded. But the purest hangout scene in the movie, in my opinion, is when Rick Dalton, Leonardo DiCaprio, and then Cliff Booth, who's his loyal stuntman / sidekick assistant, maybe heavy when needed.
Played by Brad Pitt.
Yep, played by Brad Pitt. They're sitting at his house watching his episode of FBI.
Yeah.
And it's so funny. I could just sit with those guys for hours and just hear Brad Pitt be like, oh, hey, look at that.
It's kind of like a Beavis and Butthead episode, honestly.
Almost.
They're just like sitting around, like kind of like just enjoying the episode, making cracks here and there.
Yeah, just cracking beers, being dudes.
At one point, DiCaprio says, that guy's an asshole. About one of the actors, you know?
Yeah. And he's like, I think we shot this in Malibu. I don't remember.
Yeah, totally.
And then Cliff's all like, hey, good jump, buddy. And he's like, yeah, thanks. I find that whole aspect of it just really charming. And I think Brad Pitt is a very strong contender for the Best Supporting Actor Oscar this year.
I think it's sewed up at this point. He's going to win.
Right?
Although, it's a co-lead as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, yeah?
I think they're both leads. I mean, I don't think the movie is any more slanted towards DiCaprio's character than it is towards Pitt's.
No.
I think in the hierarchy of their relationship, he's a supporting player.
Sure.
You know?
Sure.
But in the movie proper, in terms of screen time, in terms of prominence of their roles, I think it's a lead performance.
Right.
I just think this is one of those cases where Pitt could, Best Actor this year is very competitive. Pitt can and probably will win supporting actor.
Yes, I mean, he won the Golden Globe and the SAG, so it's about sewed up for him.
Totally.
That's a great point. I mean, if you went into screen time, Cliff might actually have more screen time than Rick does in the movie, which leads us to another thing that people talk about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Margot Robbie.
Yes, people with their stopwatches out and making their little tallies, watching the performance. And I made this point when we talked about The Irishman, but I will maintain that is an extremely reductive way of looking at the performance. And I find it odd. There are also critiques. It's like, yeah, but she just seems so nice. It's like, what if Sharon Tate was a nice person?
Yeah, totally.
What if she was just like sweet and, I mean, she has a pretty charmed life, so it's not hard to extrapolate that she might be in a good mood all the time.
Totally. And I think it also denies partially what Tarantino is doing in this film. The film is set in 1969, the year of the Manson murders.
Yes.
Most of the film, however, is set months before that.
Yes.
It's actually set over maybe 2 days.
2 days. It's a weekend.
Yeah, okay. Yep. So we're just sort of following these characters around. Rick lives next door to Sharon Tate and Roman Polanski.
Now that is fictional.
Yes. Rick and Cliff are both fictional characters.
Right, and the house is fictional, I think.
Yeah, but they live next door to Roman Polanski and Sharon Tate. Sharon Tate is a character in the film, played by Margot Robbie. She doesn't have a ton of dialogue.
No.
But I think that
she has a lot of screen time, though.
She does. She has a fair amount of screen time. She also has what I think is maybe the best scene in the movie, which is when she goes and sees herself on screen.
Yeah, I thought that's the scene you were going to bring up because it is a very affectionate scene and it's just about loving movies and I found it kind of touching too because she just seems so proud of herself.
Yeah.
You know, and there's sort of a theme in this movie about like love of movies and love of acting and, you know, love of your career and just, I don't know how to put it besides an appreciation of how cool it is to get to be in movies.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and Tarantino loves actors.
Sure.
You know, I even think the plot of this film is sort of similar to what Tarantino does as a filmmaker, which is he rescues these actors. These actors he loved earlier in their career when he was a younger man, people from the 70s who have seen sort of dips in their career.
Yeah.
Rick is actually kind of, like Rick is the type of actor who is waiting for his, you could see him like if he were a real person in the 90s, Tarantino would cast him.
Would cast him, yeah.
Yeah,
and,
like in like the same way he did with John Travolta.
Forgive me, I've never said the name out loud. I've only seen it in print. Gulager, he has a small role in the film, and he's a washed-up cowboy guy.
Right, exactly. So he's doing that kind of stuff all the time, you know? Yeah, he did it with Jackie Brown as well, with Pam Grier, and also Robert Forster.
Yes,
rest in peace.
absolutely.
And I think that his affection for actors comes through really strong in this movie, and really strong in that scene. When we're just watching her be so delighted at the audience's reactions to her performance. I mean, this is very much a film about kind of the agony and the ecstasy of being an actor.
Yeah, totally,
you know?
100%. Yeah.
Like it's about people who have such a difficult time sometimes with the realities of a Hollywood career, the ups and downs of it. You know, and Sharon Tate is on the up when the movie begins.
And Rick's on the way down.
Dalton's on the way down. Yep.
And I think it also, I mean, it is kind of a sweet movie. And the more I see it, the more I think it's kind of a sweet and wistful movie that's about just like, man, wouldn't it be great if the good times could last forever and you could just drink beers with your buddies all day and your career could be going great and things never have to change.
Yeah.
There's sort of a middle-aged wistfulness to it of staring down the barrel of your life and being like, man, this is great, but it's going to be over someday.
There's an anxiety to it too, though, because he is looking at people who's, I mean, beyond just the real life element that intrudes on the film at some point, we'll say, he is looking at people who are at a crossroads in their career, and they are on kind of the downturn.
Yep.
And I sense an anxiety in Tarantino from this film.
Yeah, I could see that because I kind of also interpret it more broadly as being middle-aged and being on the downward slope of your life.
I think it's also about changes in Hollywood. You know, I think we are at I think, you know, 1969 is roughly a turning point for Hollywood cinema.
For sure, yeah. The late 60s were a huge turning point in
Totally.
cinema.
We're like moving away from the studio system as it was into a new reality, the sort of new Hollywood reality of the industry. And I think we're now at a point where somebody like Tarantino, I mean, this thing was a huge hit.
Yeah.
He usually makes hits. Hateful Eight was not a hit.
Well, I was especially pleased to like this movie as much as I did because I think that Django Unchained and Hateful Eight are the two weakest films for his career.
I would agree, actually. I think they are too. I think
this was a return to form of sorts.
Yeah. I think there's I mean, in its own way, this is a history film too, but those films, Tarantino at his worst reminds me of somebody who cannot stop badgering you about the things that he likes, you know?
And it can be just very kind of bitter and spiteful. Hateful Eight is a bitter, spiteful movie.
For sure. But Tarantino has to be looking at the state of the industry now and thinking, how long can, I mean, he's talked about retiring after 10 movies anyway, and the next one would be 10.
We shall see.
We'll see, you know. But he has to kind of be looking at the industry and going, how much room is there left for something like this, even though this was a hit?
For me,
you know? Yes.
As someone who does 70mm road shows,
right.
You know.
Do I have a future in this industry?
Yeah.
You know? So that anxiety, I think, colors a lot of it.
And another thing that I really like about the movie and does reward multiple viewings is the meticulousness of the production design.
Yes.
We did an article on AV Club that was breaking down all the little, visual and dialogue references in the movie. And Tarantino really has recreated sort of his vision of a perfect past, which also, incidentally, is his childhood in Los Angeles. And that by creating that perfect moment, he is making a statement on nostalgia and wanting things to be the same as they always have been, and how maybe that's never possible.
All right, folks, thanks for watching today. Please make sure to like and subscribe if you are watching this on YouTube. Our Best Picture series is going to continue. We'll have a new episode soon on Joker.
Oh man, that's going to be a good one.
I agree, yep.
All right, thanks for watching, everybody. Bye.
Bye.